Hello and welcome to the New York Immigration Coalition's Key to the City video series. My name is Katerina and I'm the Immigrant Services Support Fellow at the NYIC, and I will be your host. The NYIC has put together a series of videos to connect immigrant New Yorkers to city services that support families' economic, educational, and social development. Today we will be hearing from Jacqueline Andujar. We will discuss how domestic violence impacts immigrant and refugee women alike and what resources and services are available to them. We'd like to thank the New York City Council and the Department of Youth and Community Development for sponsoring this video. Now I'd like to introduce Jackie from VIP.
Hi, Katarina, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Jacqueline Andujar. I am a counselor advocate for the Violence Intervention Program. The Violence Intervention Program has led the response to gender-based violence in Latinx and immigrant communities throughout New York City for nearly 4 decades. Founded in East Harlem in 1984 by Black and Latinx survivors and activists. VIP is deeply rooted in communities of color throughout the New York City. We provide healing, housing, and a number of services. We provide a 24-hour bilingual hotline, residential and non-residential trauma-informed services for victims of domestic violence, including individuals dealing with immigration issues. To this day, we are the only culturally specific org in New York City serving Latinx survivors of domestic and sexual violence.
Great. Thank you so much, Jackie. We're happy that you're joining us today. So we're going to start at the beginning with some surface level questions. So to start off, how can I recognize domestic abuse?
Okay, that's a great question. Well, domestic abuse, also referred to as intimate partner violence, or as we say, IPV, is a pattern of behaviors used by other partners to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. So this can include dating violence. This can be, in some cases, someone who's a roommate. Most people don't know that, but it's also another form that falls under intimate partner violence. We know that domestic violence does not discriminate, and it impacts many different communities, and it affects individuals across a variety of socio-demographic groups. When people hear the words domestic violence, they typically think of physical abuse. And this is, in fact, one form of domestic abuse, but it's not the only one in which abusive partners engage in. There are many forms of abuse patterns. One of them can be, for example, threatening or intimidating their partners, controlling access to outside support or relationships, controlling access to financial resources such as employment, limiting access to bank accounts, using and destroying someone's credit. It's very common here, when you do see this, especially when working with victims directly. Most clients that we receive always have issues with their credit score. So this is when we offer an economic justice program in which we provide them with resources of how to rebuild their credit. There's another form of threatening to harm children, family members, pets. We could go on and on of these types of abuses. When we do an assessment, we usually go down a list of questions just to see where can we meet them at and how we can support them.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive definition. I think, like you said, a lot of the time we recognize physical abuse as the only form of domestic abuse. So I think the first step is recognizing that there are other forms. And I think your definition really helps with that. So since we're still laying the groundwork, my next question is, if I or somebody I know is in an abusive relationship, what can I do?
Well, if you or a friend or someone you may know is experiencing some form of abuse, it's important to always know that you are not to blame for being battered or mistreated. You're not the cause of your partner's abusive behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve a safe and happy life. Your children as well. Let's say if your friend or you or someone you know has a child, they are also experiencing this form of abuse. And you're not alone. There's so many resources throughout New York City, including crisis hotlines, shelters, even job trainings, legal services, and childcare. And the best thing you can do is start reaching out. Also, working out a safety plan with them, and having a discussion of how comfortable they feel about even disclosing that. Because I know that's a very difficult thing for anyone in this situation. And it's hard also to approach someone who's actually living with their abuser. So you must believe them, actively listen to them, do not judge them, reassure them that it's not their fault. It's always the reassurance of knowing that someone is listening, someone actually knows that this is happening to them. So that brings like a sense of comfort to the person experiencing the abuse. Do not minimize what they're going through. Sometimes that may happen, and it can be really difficult for that person to even think about reaching out to anyone. Emotional support, it's important as well. And stay by them throughout the process. Don't abandon them, especially during that time. You have access to so much information. You have online services, and you have resources throughout New York, like the Family Justice Center, which shares multiple services for someone going through a crisis like this.
This is all so important. Like you said, we all deserve to feel safe and respected and supported. And you've touched on this as well, but domestic violence can ultimately impact anyone. And all of this stands true, whether you're undocumented, unhoused, of low income. So now we're going to move more into how can we get to that point where we feel safe, respected, and supported. So my next question is, how can I leave an abusive family situation without putting my children or myself at risk?
Okay, that's a great question. And we do get those questions a lot. It's important, especially to know that leaving an abusive situation is not an easy thing to do, especially when there's children involved, right? It often takes several times for an individual to do so. In many cases, someone will leave and return. They say that it's over like 11 times for someone to finally leave in an abusive situation. So we encourage victims to reach out for support when they don't feel safe to do so. We still have clients who live with abusers, and we still work with them while living in these situations. So we provide safety plans. We work with them and try to figure ways out in which we can meet somewhere that's safe. We basically create protocols, like we'll text them and say, hey, just give us a call. And we won't identify who we are because it'll give the client the advantage to say, oh, it's my doctor reaching out, or it's my clinic reaching out. So we create these safety plans for the sake of the children and themselves. There's DV hotlines and orgs like VIP that can provide safety tips on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. They are bilingual, and we also work with the language line. So if someone speaks another language, we have someone there who can also provide this service. Like I said, we develop safety plans. We work with someone to just start from the beginning to the end, how to create a safe exit plan for you and your children and your pets. Because there's been cases where an individual, an abuser, will use the pets as sort of like a threat to keep the client or the survivor stuck in the relationship, because they're like, you can't have the pet, or I'll harm the pet if you leave. So in cases like that, in the event that someone cannot contact the hotline or VIP safely because perhaps this partner is constantly around and he or she's monitoring them, you might have an opportunity to connect with so many people, like in your daily life, a medical provider, a teacher, a counselor at the school. You could use these resources and take advantage of that while you're dropping off your kid at school and you're saying, hey, I need to speak with the school counselor for, whatever's going on with your child. And that's an opportunity for you to say, listen, I need help. I'm in an abusive relationship. I need to get out. And my partner is sitting out in the hallway, but this is the only opportunity I have. Same thing with the doctor, by sharing with them and saying, listen, my doctor doesn't like, for anyone to come in because he believes that a patient is only allowed in the exam room alone. So that's also an opportunity in which a client can share and say, this is what's going on at home and I need to get out.
This is all very helpful. I think you've done a great job emphasizing that there is help available if you need it and if you're seeking it. And going off of what you said about VIP, it sounds like you guys really meet people where they're at. So if they still are living with their abuser, or if they don't speak English or Spanish, you're able to meet them where they're at and get them the help that they need. So I'd like to move now into how being undocumented further complicates leaving an abusive family situation. So if I am undocumented and my abuser is a US citizen, and what if they're threatening to call ICE? What can I do?
Yes, we do get this a lot. Yes, this is very common. The first thing I would say is that you have rights as an undocumented individual. You have the right to seek safety. Some people are not comfortable calling 911, especially if they're undocumented, but they can call us directly. They can call VIP. They can call Safe Horizon, in which I believe we will be listing that information. They can also call the family justice centers or the DA's office. They work closely with immigrant survivors that are experiencing this on a daily basis, in which they will offer them the opportunity to file for an order of protection. They're eligible to do a separation of divorce. They will provide them with the rights of custody for their children, financial support. There's a number of services that undocumented families are eligible for, and it's safe to call. So, they need to know that, it's okay to call any of us and they will be protected.
Right. And I definitely want to emphasize your first point that even if you are undocumented, you have rights and there is help available. And to kind of dive deeper into what those rights are, if I am undocumented and I am being abused, will I get deported if I report to the police? Or am I eligible for a restraining order against my abuser? What are my rights in these situations?
Okay, so no. In our cases, in my experience doing this for over 20 years, I've never seen someone get deported for reporting abuse. Instead, it works in the victim's favor, where they will receive all these protections. There's so many laws right now out there that are protecting undocumented individuals and families from abuse. So they have the right to file. They have the right to speak with an attorney. They have the right to file a report with the DA's office. Whether it's a criminal or family case, they are eligible to receive these order of protections without any form of biases. So it's the best thing for them to do, especially if there's children involved and, you just don't feel safe, or it's getting to the point that it's escalating where the client feels that, I can no longer be in this situation. This is no longer a place for me and my family.
Yes, that's all great. And I think that we want to emphasize, which is that you can contact the police without fear of deportation if you are experiencing abuse. And there are still resources and help available to you as someone who is undocumented.
They also need to know that there is experts throughout New York City that work directly with assisting clients. For instance, some of them could be eligible for like VAWA or the U visa based on what has happened, whether it was a criminal case of domestic violence abuse or a family case of domestic violence abuse against them or their children. So it's always great to come down or just, meet us, have a call with us, and someone would sit with them and basically break down their rights.
Yeah, like I said, meeting people where they're at and getting them the help
Exactly.
that they need. So, following up off of that, a question that we've actually received is, if I'm undocumented and I've suffered domestic violence while in the US, would the father of my children get in trouble if I reported past domestic abuse during my immigration case?
Okay, so this question would be more for an attorney to respond, because I believe it's case by case. We've had questions like this, and what I can say in my own experience, the individual, the abuser, yes, will get in trouble, but I've never heard of them actually being deported. A lot of them will end up in court with a criminal charge and the DA will follow the case with the client. So it's case by case. You can always contact the family justice centers because they work directly with the DA's office and the mayor's office. So they have all these services there where, especially if a client feels like they just don't know the answers to this, they can go there before they even think about filing a charge.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. A lot of the questions that we've discussed so far are centered around how to recognize abuse and overcome that barrier of fear when seeking assistance. And while that definitely is one of the biggest challenges, I was hoping we could dive deeper into what happens after someone seeks assistance, given that that sometimes could put a survivor in an even more dangerous situation. Following up off of that, then the question is, if I just spoke to the police about how my partner is abusing me and I don't want to go home, where can I go?
Okay, so the great thing about New York City, we are full of so many resources. That's the beauty of living in New York. Compared to other places, we do have multiple services and we have shelters throughout the 5 boroughs and even out of state. Even in Westchester County, we've done referrals for clients. So let's say if you don't have a safe place to go, immediately the first thing you should do, contact the hotline, whether it is VIP's hotline, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or Safe Horizon, and they would direct you to someone in a shelter somewhere throughout the 5 boroughs, and they would do an assessment with the client. And they're the ones who would determine if you are actually a victim of domestic violence and if you fall under that category. So yes, any client, it doesn't matter. Like I said, your immigration status will not be denied shelter. You can also, like, if you're not comfortable calling from home or from a friend's house, you can go to your local hospital, contact the hotline from there. They will complete an assessment because a lot of the hospitals are trained now. A lot of the nurses are trained and staff. They will be able to address this for the client and be able to walk them through that process. And once they're accepted in shelter, they will usually schedule a safe location for the client to meet, where someone could pick them up and escort them to a shelter where they will receive all the services and support that they would need.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. There are clearly so many steps that are in place to prevent any retaliation after disclosing abuse and to really ensure that someone is safe following that disclosure. All right, Jag, I have one last question for you, and potentially the most important one is that if I am a survivor of domestic violence, where can I go to talk to people like me? Where do I build community after this?
Okay, definitely. So you can always call us and we will connect you to, we offer support groups. We also offer counselor and advocates like myself. And just to give you an example of what we do when a client calls the hotline, usually that client is referred directly to one of the counselors that are available that day. And what they would do is do a full assessment and see the needs of these clients. So, for instance, if I have someone that just walks in today and they're like, listen, I have an emergency, I usually sit down with them, I have a discussion with them about what's going on, how can we help you? We create a safety plan. We have a full discussion of the services we offer, and we offer housing, shelter placement, advocacy to connect to many organizations that are behind us because we partner with so many, and work out a plan. And there we will provide them even with support groups so they can meet people like them that are actually going through this. And we create this like supportive circle. So each individual will be able to connect, right? And find their community.
That's great. And VIP does so much if that hasn't already been highlighted in this video. So we will be sure to include your resources and your hotline information all in our description box below. But yes, it's great to hear that there are so many organizations and people like you, Jackie, that are so helping and supporting survivors of domestic violence. I wanted to thank you again for your time. This is not an easy topic to discuss. These were not easy questions. So I really appreciate your clarity in helping break it all down for me and for the viewers. Be sure to check out the New York Immigration Coalition's Women's Health Access video too, which was done in collaboration with Planned Parenthood, as well as our other videos, which will be available in our YouTube and Facebook pages. And to stay involved with the New York Immigration Coalition, you can follow us here on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you again, Jackie.
Thank you.
Stay safe and take care.